Pierce Brosnan was basically the current James Bond for me growing up. But I still watched all the older ones as well, because they were constantly on TV and I loved them. I also recorded them on VHS, and I'm pretty sure I had every single one of them. So it wasn't like Brosnan was the Bond for me, he was just a Bond. And for my 10-year-old self, those big modern spectacle movies he made were pretty much a perfect fit. But at the same time, I also had a soft spot for Roger Moore's Bond. He was probably my favorite. But at the same time, I also loved some of the Sean Connery movies. And Timothy Dalton was great too. I even liked George Lazenby. So I definitely didn't discriminate. But then eventually in my teens, Casino Royale came out with Daniel Craig. And it pretty much changed everything. That very quickly became my favorite Bond movie, and to this day I don't think anything comes even close. But anyway, as I said, I was in my teens at this point and my tastes were evolving and maturing. And older Bond movies kind of fell to the wayside for a long time there. In fact, for the next 20 years or so, I don't think I rewatched a single one of them, except for Dr. No. The only Bond movies I really saw during this period were basically the new ones coming out. And that was pretty much it. Until last year, early 2024, when I suddenly decided that, you know what? I'm gonna rewatch all of them, in release order. And so I did. I watched one a day for about 3 weeks and it was a pretty interesting experience. And what I learned from that was that my tastes have definitely changed since I was a kid. But that some of the movies still hold up. Like Goldfinger and Thunderball. I think those are just peak James Bond. They just capture the fun and spectacle of it all, without getting too goofy and over the top. GoldenEye was also pretty damn good, and probably the best of the darker, more serious films. But honestly, most of the other movies were pretty damn mediocre. Each one had its own issues, but overall, none of the other ones really stood out to me as being anything particularly great, and I don't know if I'll ever even bother rewatching them. And that was probably the biggest surprise to me. Now, I didn't expect to love them all, but I did expect to find most of them to be decently good. But that wasn't really the case. And out of 20 or so movies, I really only liked 3. That's not a great batting average. And I really didn't see that coming at all. Now, I haven't actually gotten around to rewatching the Daniel Craig films yet, but I have a decent idea what I think of them anyway. And they're pretty okay for the most part, but Casino Royale is still in a league of its own. However, now that the Daniel Craig era is over, I'm excited for the future and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. Which I guess brings me to the Amazon takeover, because back in 2022 Amazon bought MGM, which owns the rights to the James Bond franchise. And that was probably the main reason they bought it too, because it is their most valuable IP. However, the creative control over the franchise had been in the hands of the Broccoli family, since the inception really. First it was Albert R. Broccoli, and then his daughter Barbara. Those two oversaw the entire franchise run, from the 60s into the 2020s. And that's pretty impressive. However, then something happened and I'm not entirely sure what. Because after the Amazon acquisition, Barbara seemed to be dragging her feet and seemed to be reluctant to move forward with finding a replacement for Daniel Craig and finding a new direction to head in with the franchise itself. Because the filming of the most recent Bond movie, No Time to Die, wrapped in 2019, and it was supposed to come out in 2020, but then some events took place and it was delayed to 2021, but the film was already done in 2020. And yet by the time 2025 rolled around, that's 5 full years after the completion of the previous film, Barbara admitted that they hadn't cast a new Bond yet, and they didn't even have a script for a new movie. Now, I don't know what she expected would happen next, but I sure wasn't surprised, because what happened was that Amazon finally took over the creative control of the franchise and got the ball rolling again, which to me is completely fair. and seemed like a no-brainer move. Because if you buy a movie studio for more than $8 billion, you probably want to see a return on that investment at some point, right? And if that studio only has one massive super valuable IP, you're not going to be very happy if that IP is just sitting there for half a decade, with seemingly no progress being made. And apparently the higher-ups at Amazon thought exactly that, and therefore they made sure to get the full creative control of the franchise. And now finally things are moving again, and it looks like we're gonna get a new movie probably in 2027. And my initial plan with this video was to talk about how perfect Denis Villeneuve would be to head the next installment of the franchise, since he's just an exceptional filmmaker, who's proven to be capable of not only making massive blockbusters, but he's also great at handling adaptations and existing IPs. And not only that either, because he's shown that he's great at dealing with movie studios and their demands, without sacrificing his own vision for the films he's making. Oh, and he's also an admitted fan of James Bond, and has already in the past stated that he would love to do a James Bond movie at some point. So yeah, on paper he's perfect. But then, when I'd already written the script, they of course officially announced that Denis Villeneuve is in fact gonna be the one directing the next Bond film. So I scrapped the video because I didn't really have anything more to say about it, and I missed the boat on that. It happens. However, one day, a few weeks later maybe, I was randomly just thinking about who could be the next Bond actor, because all of the names I'd heard thrown around just felt a bit uninspired to me. And honestly, none of them seemed like a great fit. But then out of nowhere, the perfect candidate popped into my mind. Barry Keoghan. Of course, he would be the perfect guy. He's got the charm, he's got the charisma, he's relatively young, he's got a recognizable name, he's got the acting chops, and he doesn't look like a prepubescent boy either. He's got a bit of grit to him, and all of that combined, to me at least, makes him the perfect James Bond. I simply cannot think of a better fit. I'm even gonna go as far as to say that not casting him would be a mistake. Now, is he even interested? I don't know, but I hope he is. I also hope that the people in charge can see the potential I see, and that we're gonna get another great Bond installment. Because Villeneuve plus Keoghan has the makings of something really special. Now, I do have to admit that I instantly googled Barry Keoghan James Bond. And of course I'm not the first one to suggest this, but he's definitely not one of the names I hear thrown around a lot, and I absolutely think he needs to be. But what do you think? Am I completely off here? Tell me in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe hit that like button. Or if you're feeling daring, you could potentially also sub to the channel for more content like this. But yeah, I think that's it for today, and see you next time.